founder of the Dwarf Planet University, which people are absolutely loving. He's an extremely popular teacher. And we're going to be having yet another conversation about some different aspects of the dwarf planets, because I think they are, with these conversations I'm having with Alan, they're coming more and more into our consciousness now. And that's a wonderful thing, because they really represent, I feel, and I know Alan feels as well, that they represent the next episode for humanity. This is where we're headed, isn't it, Alan?
That's right. We've discovered them now for a reason. Our consciousness is ready for this new influx of consciousness energy that is represented by these new planets.
Yeah, fantastic. So I know you wanted to start with Jupiter square to Eris, which we've got operational right now. That's at kind of 26 of Cancer, Jupiter, to 26 of Aries for Eris. Mm. Yes, and you've just written... you've co-written with Melissa Billington, your long-time assistant, this wonderful little book about Eris. And I love these short books you're doing on each of the dwarf planets, because they're so easy to read, but they are jam-packed with information. So I love this, actually, and again, discovered quite a lot more about Eris that I haven't seen in the archetypes. So yeah, over to you, Alan, because you've talked about this square representing a free consciousness expansion, which I loved. So can you expand on that?
Well, Eris is a beautiful energy. Eris gets a bad rep because of her myth and sort of reputation as the goddess of discord, which is, the myths talk about the manifestation at the unconscious level. So we experience these new consciousness energies differently depending on our level of consciousness. When we're unconscious of them, they barge into our lives unexpectedly. We're not conscious of them. And then she's definitely the goddess of discord. She's encouraging discord, though, to get us to realize when we're fooling ourselves or when we're being fooled, because we fool ourselves just to get through each day. It's too sort of challenging to embrace everything that's happening around us and sort of include that, call it all valuable, not judge it. And that's a hard thing to do, and that's what Eris is asking us to do. And when we don't do that, we get those bits that we're shutting out. They're still there. They come in, and that's discord. But it's just that we are not sensitive to it. So, and then as we grow spiritually and embrace her energy, she's all about transmuting life into love, taking those challenges, that discord, that imbalance that we're finding in our lives, and turning it into love. And we do that by working with it. There's a work there. She's the warrior sister of Mars in myth, and she's always on the battlefield with him, and she lays waste to both sides. Her problem is the battle. It's not one side or the other, and she's got the strength to to deal with any challenge. Her head rises to the heavens with each new obstacle. And so, I suggest she's actually represents a new female power that we're embracing, now able to embrace. So different from a male power, we tend to think of Pluto as power, and it's a male power. And it can be sort of overbearing, and it can be sort of pushy. It's sort of, can be rough. And so, and yet, by contrast, Eris's head rises to the heavens with each new challenge. She meets the energy required for each challenge, and doesn't overpower in the way that Pluto does. It's a different sort of power. I suggest a female power. And so we've got this square going on at the moment between Jupiter and Eris. And that's going to manifest differently for people depending on their consciousness level. And, Jupiter, we want to expand. and at the unconscious level, Eris is all about the competition to be best, to sort of to get my way. And in myths, she wasn't invited to a wedding, and she threw the golden apple to the fairest, inscribed to the fairest, into the wedding, and the goddesses fought over it. This is the goddess of discord, sort of where it comes from. They're competing with one another to be the fairest. They're, and we're like this at the unconscious level with Eris, where we get carried away with the sort of the capitalist system, the sort of survival of the fittest, we're sort of, we're not very thoughtful. We're not very loving in that experience. And so at the unconscious level, there could be a sort of a struggle going on at the moment, or a battle going on, to survive, to be the best, to be the sort of fairest, to be the sort of and depending on, we could be playing different roles in that battle, and so we might feel that we're not being sort of given any credit and things like that, and have to struggle for that and so on. And it might work, but it's likely to sort of bring some of that disruption, bring some of that discord into the process, so that we face up to and realize the things that we're not sort of including in our worldview. We deny them. We just don't include them. We actually deny them. I worked a lot in my earlier years as a clown. I did a lot of street theatre, and you go out as a clown and you sort of dress up, and you've got sort of you're attracting attention. You the whole go to start with is attract attention. Then you have to do something with that attention, and it's just amazing how many people, you're walking down the street, there's a lot of attention being sort of, I'm trying to attract attention in all sorts of ways, sounds, movements, the way I look, and so on and so on, totally ignored by sort of, 40% of the people, totally. Just don't seem, I'm not there.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? Now, it's, I love the way you described Eris, because as I say, I actually learned more, Alan, from your descriptions. I mean, just to remind people of the basics, if you're not familiar, it's a very long orbit. It's 560 years, and it's inclined at 44 degrees to the ecliptic. So, again, we have a sort of sense of the radical, the outlier, the one who's not going to play the game and be conformist. So, but, I love the way that you said she's really going to reveal and challenge any competition based on self-image, personal vanity, and judgments. So if you're playing those games of personal vanity, judgment, etc., Eris is going to expose that. And I love the way you talked about her fierce grace and divine power. That was a beautiful combination of words, fierce grace and divine power. It really was fabulous. So, and she really is a truth-telling activist, isn't she? I want everybody to be included, nobody left out, nobody on the periphery. But what I really got insight on with reading this short book was how, even if there's been what we might consider injustice or suffering, Eris seems to go beyond that and say, no, we can't have judgment. If we're going to these high dimensions. So where does forgiveness come in with that? Clearly there's been enormous human suffering for eternity, but particularly the last few years. So where does forgiveness come into that, Alan?
So, I mean, I'm going to suggest that forgiveness is a sort of an inner planet experience rather than an outer planet experience. That we're trying to, forgiveness is sort of us reconciling the ego center with our actions or other people's actions in the world. And those interactions come from, it can come from these outer planet transits or something like that, stimulating us in a particular way. But the forgiveness, so with Eris, for example, she's transmuting life into love. There is no forgiveness required for Eris. It's all valued, and even, yes, those, if we misstep, if we take a lower Eris sort of step, and we learn from that, then that's all valuable. It's all valuable. And that's her point, that it's all valuable. So there is no need for forgiveness, in fact, at the Eris level. Forgiveness, I think, may be a Plutonian thing, because Pluto is sort of working to dissolve the ego center so that we can merge with the oneness of existence. As a Scorpion, I with a strong Pluto, forgiveness has been a big lesson for me. I think it's probably a Plutonian lesson.
Yeah, and a big dollop of Neptune, perhaps, as well, with compassion.
Yes, totally, Neptune. Yes, totally. Yes.
So it's interesting that on the one hand, there's a sense with Eris, which I hadn't seen before, of shifting towards unity consciousness, and in that sense, she's echoing Homer as well, which you feel is very much about. She's very much about unity consciousness, but also there's an echo in the Eris mythology of Ixion and Black Moon Lilith. The truth teller, the ones who have to challenge the old system. And I mean, Eris is feisty, isn't she? Or whatever, that may be a slightly lower level of expression, but she's the feisty street fighter.
That's right. No, she's feisty, totally. No, that's the beautiful thing about it. Yeah.
Do you see the square from Jupiter expanding, magnifying that potential feistiness on the street? Because I think there's a lot of potential for that.
That's exactly what's going down. But if we just sort of look at that world events as a sort of an example, we do seem to actually be coming to a peace deal in at the moment between Iran and the US, and so that's the inclusiveness. They've each had to sort of become more inclusive, actually, to come to some sort of agreement. It's not going to work, there'll be whatever. But there is an Erisian and Jupiterian process going on there at the moment. So yes, so there's as you say, that sort of similarity with Ixion and the sort of the outsider, the truth teller. There's a role for that, and it's a valuable role, and and it's beneficial. So she's the goddess of pluralism at the top level. She's not the goddess of discord. She's got that ability to include everything and value everything.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because at one level of expression, in a way, she's emphasizing polarity, because she is part of the battle of, she will not tolerate injustice or dishonesty. But at a higher level, she ultimately goes beyond that into, compassion and love, etc., into a sort of much more transcendent state. So it's very interesting. It's sort of very layered, her expression.
It is, and the further out we go with the planets, the more layered they become. That's they've got a bigger orbit. It can manifest. It includes all the other ones that are inside them, and so it can be more layered in that way.
Wow! So that's also an expression of our increasing multidimensionality in that case. Yes.
Yes. Which is could be a good segue to Lalea Kurunua.
Yes, absolutely. Because because there was that. Alan and I, for those of you who haven't heard it, had a very rich discussion about 9 months ago about the wonderful dwarf planet of Lilia Kuhonoa, which has an orbit of 33,000 years, longest ring of.
Actually, 55. They've up valued it. But they're still working out exactly because from the points of discovery that on the orbit that they've got at the moment. 55,000 years, so 5 times Sedna's orbit.
That's phenomenal. It's, just amazing the information it's bringing from so far out. And of course, that echoes the mythology of the flight of the Collier bird, this tiny little plover that's born in the Arctic and flies all the way, it takes several days, doesn't it, to Hawaii.
5 days, yeah.
Incredible. That vast distance and the vast distance of the orbit is, just fascinating. But there's a fascinating Sabian symbol for the discovery degree, I remember from our conversation, that was about a being able to successfully express in 2 dimensions at once, 2 realms at once, I think you said.
That's right. That's it. Successful self-expression in 2 realms at once. So it's a multi-dimensional consciousness that we're coming to understand. As we virtual reality and the multiverse and these various ideas are coming in. Reality we've known for a long time. That reality is not a fixed thing, and that spiritual people have often talked about sort of different realms, and we're now getting to the point where we can sort of embrace the consciousness of that actually, and we can successfully express ourselves in those different realms by understanding that they're different. And that's the the huge beauty. I sort of link the Lea Kurunua because the planets get more spiritual. So we're talking about Eris and Eris. And just to mention on Eris for people early in this who might want to leave, there's a free download of the Eris book that I've just put out. I've just put out that Eris book. There's a free download. Go to Amazon, get it in these next days. Eris is the furthest out before Sedna that we've discovered, and then the Lea Kurunua is the next out from there. They're sednoids, Sedna and the Lea Kurunua. They've got a longer oblong orbit, and so it's close to the Earth and the Sun at one point and far away at another point. So as you say, it sort of pulls in that bigger, morphs our reality to include a sort of a much bigger perspective on reality.
So the multidimensionality is going to be experienced either artificially via all kinds of clever virtual reality goggles, or organically and naturally by your own spiritual evolution.
Both, ideally. Ideally the spiritual, obviously, but it's going to be in the practical world as well. So yes, that's it, and just yes. More and more people are sort of are growing spiritually. More and more people are on the spiritual path. That's my experience, and as we discover these planets, it's kind of just encouraging that more and more. And so, so that Sedna is the soul's path of destiny. I suggest that big orbit, 11,406 years. Our life is just one piece, but over lifetimes, that's our soul's path of destiny. And so the Sedna placement in our charts it talks about what our soul really wants to do in this life, how we want to grow. It's a growth process over the lifetimes. It's not random. And we take stuff from one life into the next life, unresolved stuff. That's the karma. And so the Sedna's orbit, the soul's path of destiny, and then the Lea Kurunua obviously extends that even more spiritually to the soul family, to the soul field that we're part of. We're part of a whole field of souls that are all, we're helping one another. Even the discordant ones, even sort of, that's all what we need. And so we've kind of made an agreement to come together in this life and do whatever we're doing here. But we're part of something which is much bigger and sort of informing the life that we're living here in a particular way. And that's that multidimensional consciousness where we can see our soul reflected in the souls of the other people in our lives.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's interesting for those of you who don't know, with Lilia Honua, she was part of the original Hawaiian creation myth. So, several of the dwarf planets, Manwe, Vada, and also this wonderful dwarf planet are part of creation myths originally, which is really talking about a principle of rebirth, isn't it? This new episode for humanity. And it seems that so many of them are connected to the natural world. And as an expression of multidimensionality, do you feel, Alan, that we may start to be telepathic with trees and the elemental realm and our galactic family, etc.? I mean, it's so interesting that the film Disclosure, which is getting good playback from people who've seen it, it came out on Friday, that was when Uranus was exactly square the nodal axis.
Right.
The galactic expressing in the collective. I mean, it was just like a cosmic joke. It was so literal.
Yeah.
So do you feel with Lilia Honua that she is going to help us to connect to all those different forms of life in a way that we haven't done in our memory?
No, that's right, exactly. To reconnect in that way. That's right, I think, totally. Yes. The Hova birds, they've got, they make this huge migration over days. They do it in a group. So the chicks are sort of up and feeding themselves in the first day of their lives. So they're kind of an independent bird. And birds are spirit energies in myths, so it's an independent spirit, and yet when they migrate, they do it in a V formation, and they take turns moving all the way up to the front. The front one is the sort of and they half their brain sleeps and the other half stays awake and flies, and then they swap over, and they can see infrared, they can see ley lines, they can, so they've got a whole different perspective than we have, and so this, it's a multidimensionality. It's a larger way of seeing, definitely a connection with the world in a whole lot of new ways where we can really feel it, sense it, in different ways.
That's fascinating because you've also got Uranus in Gemini, also talking about that multidimensionality. So do you feel that the conjunction between Saturn and Lilia Honua, which is so tight right now, is that the embodiment of our multidimensionality, the memory of, but because Saturn's also connected very much to memory, but also the embodiment of our multidimensionality that's coming back online?
Yeah, but I'm hoping, at the top level, that's how it's going to manifest. Yes, in some way, our physical reality is encountering that soul family connection. And depending on what's going on for us personally in terms of where we are in our growth as a soul and those interactions that we're having with the other souls, we're going to embody that in some way. And there's a rich, what we've been discovering in the classes at the Dwarf Planet University with Lilia Honua. So Lilia Honua is new. I've just there was a research project that I led at NCGR last year that sort of looked at what the meaning of the planet is. And since then, we've been sort of working with it in classes. And in the classes, so we look at it, each student looks at it in their own chart, looks at their house position, looks at the aspects over a fortnight with each of those, and then the transits for a fortnight, 6-week courses. And you kind of you onboard the consciousness by understanding how it's actually working in your life. And you share that in Zooms, and you share it on a blog and in assignment form. And it's a wonderful process, a collective process of sort of researching this work. So the Laocoonua had a group sort of original research. I think the first planet that was discovered in a group setting. I mean, they were all discovered in a group sort of by different astrologers and so on, but this was talking to one another as we did it. And talking about groups, talking about soul groups. It's a natural part of that process. And so and what we've been discovering in the classes is there's a rich, you imagine 55,000-year orbit. Yeah, traditional astrology looks at that and thinks sort of so small, so far out there, probably, sort of lost in the void, is the feeling about it. But actually quite the reverse. There's a real support, there's a nourishment that comes from that soul family. It must do. I can't see where else it's coming from. So you feel it in the classes. We feel it together in the work we're doing. And that is just so supportive. It's so sort of, reassuring. I don't know why, but there's a wonderful reassuring nature to that. I guess it's just that sense that we're part of a bigger sort of
connectedness. Yeah.
Connectedness.
And Alan, don't you have your own natal Lilia Ku Honor in your third house, along with your assistant Melissa? So you write and speak about it. I mean, how literal is that?
That's it, exactly. It's I've written a number of books over the years. I've never been able to write with anyone else. I've never wanted to. I've never tried. But Melissa and I have a wonderful. We just sat down and we tried. We started doing it, and we kind of bounce the ideas back and forwards, and it just goes down. We have to lift ourselves out of our personal stuff. We have to sort of go out there into that sort of soul connection, really. We both got Gong Gong conjunct Mars, so we have to lift ourselves out of the lower Gong Gong. We both got Eris in the fourth house, so we have to sort of be careful of our communication with one another. Diplomatic, sensitive, loving, but the real strength is the Laocoonua in the third house, where we really, it's soul work that we're doing and it manifests in the book. When this Eris book, the editor sort of wrote back. He's edited a number of my books, and he wrote back. He said, "This is great languaging, metaphors, and so on in this book," and he particularly pointed out some that he liked, and they were all Melissa's. So I give huge kudos to Melissa for her work on this book.
It's beautiful, and it's such an easy read with so much information in it. So it really recommend it to people. And Alan has just said you can get it free on Amazon for the next few days. So yeah, great opportunity. So do you want to move on now to another? There's so many huge conjunctions here to these very potent dwarf planets, to Saturn conjunct Salacia, because I think they're sort of 13, 14 degrees of Aries right now in a tight conjunction. And what's your perspective on that, Alan? What would you like to share on that?
Well, I think we're lucky. We're in a very sort of lucky period. I would encourage lightheartedness to everyone in their experience. So why are we lucky? Because Saturn is all about sort of rules and responsibility and being practical and so on. Wonderful things, but some things that can feel a bit sort of challenging, and particularly restriction and so on, and can feel a bit challenging, Saturnian thing. And Salacia is all about process. I look at Salacia as higher love consciousness, so lifting the sort of the intimate connection of Venus and Mars into a sort of a higher love.
Salacious. Yeah.
Yes. She's salacious at the unconscious level, but she's but that salaciousness. There's a physical thing there. There's also a psychic thing there. Eroticism. What is that? It's a psychic thing, and so as we lift Salacia's energy out of that sort of unconscious space, it's a higher love consciousness. At the top level, she can bring true love into our lives. We have to be able to see it, and embrace it, and then it's a real power. So she's got a wonderful ability to give us a sort of an understanding of the process that we're in, and to engage with that process at each point that's appropriate. There's a good time to do everything, and there's only so much possible at any one time, and so by understanding the process, we can engage with what's possible, make our choice about what to do, and at the right time. And we don't need to worry, sort of, is it the right time? We can just sense, is it the right time? And it's a heart-based experience. You just know in your heart it's the right time. And so that kind of softens, that understanding of process softens the demands of Saturn, or helps with the demands of Saturn, giving us a sort of a sense of, all right, there might be restriction now, but what opportunities are there? And we can, within that, take a step. Each step takes us to a new place. So we can then take a new step from there, depending on what's available. So that process is a wonderful, and in that, not taking it personally. Whatever it is that, this is the sort of the higher love consciousness, and the difference between the mundane sort of Venus-Mars. It's personal. Of course it is. It's my love. And so, but by not taking it personally, we can laugh it off. We can be light-hearted. And that light-heartedness is protective. It sort of gives us, we laugh it off, we let it go. This is part of, talking about forgiveness earlier, it's not forgiveness, but by letting go of stuff, it's not baggage that we're carrying around. And so, so that's the beauty of Salacia. She's really got a light-heartedness and a sense of process that can help with those Saturnian demands that we may be feeling at the moment. I think they're exact in a couple of days. So.
And I've been thinking about this a lot because, in her mythology as mermaid energy, she's related to the shimmering sunlight, moonlight on the sea, which I've always felt represents very high frequency light.
Yeah.
But I'm also feeling now that going another step forwards with that she may represent the living, loving liquid light. This high frequency plasma that's coming in, with which we are creating our reality. Saturn, by embodying it, how much of that living, loving liquid light can you embody in yourself, and also via the water that we're drinking, by blessing and loving the water before we drink it, because she's related to the seas and the oceans, wife of Neptune. And what is also pragmatic, strategic, realistic for the long term, Saturn, that we are building. These are kind of our ingredients in our evolution that I think are very clearly described by that conjunction between Saturn and Salacia.
I love it. Yes, totally, absolutely, absolutely. Yes, yes. And the more we can embody that, obviously, the better for us and for the world.
She's got a magical quality, this sparkly, magical. I mean, when you look at the sunlight, moonlight on the sea, it is magical, isn't it? It's diamond. And, and many sensitive people are seeing that in the plasma coming in, this living, loving liquid light coming in.
Exactly. Yes. So very much to do with sort of light language, that psychic contact, that light language. And embodying that, as you say, bringing it onto the planet and into our lives, and it's beautiful. It's just beautiful. Yes, I love.
They're in Aries. It's that's picking up that Saturn Neptune conjunction of the new human. This whole episode as well.
Well, I think so. So we've got Saturn conjunct Salacia right now, and Lalea Kuanura is just another degree away, I think. And so we're having it's Salacia conjunct Lalea Kuanura is the longer aspect that we're having, and Saturn is coming up now for both of them. I think going to go retrograde around sort of the Lalea Kuanura conjunction and back again, and so it's a longer sort of over the next year sort of thing overall with the Saturn conjunction. But that Lalea Kuanura and Salacia conjunction, yes, I think that's really to do with what you're talking about in terms of the new human manifesting on the planet. That soul family together with that light connection that you're talking about. And
the multidimensionality you've referred to.
That's right, pulling it all together in our world, actually. Able to in this next wee while, and that multidimensionality is the new human. Actually, probably, that's what we're, And
it's fascinating. So. You're also mentioning light language, because I also see Uranus in Gemini as light languages, galactic languages, ancient languages being remembered. There's a multidimensional expression of language, because that's very connected to Gemini.
That's it.
And Uranus is taking that to a higher level. It's absolutely fascinating. And it's fascinating also right now that the Pentagon is releasing lots of UFO files.
Yes.
Right now, as Uranus spares the nodal axis. I mean, it's right on time, isn't it? It's right on time.
It's not just Uranus, it's Uranus Sedna. They're conjunct there. And so... it's soul growth work that's going on with all of that new discovery that's manifesting in the world. I think that Uranus Sedna is having huge effects on in the world at the moment. We've been studying. Sedna. We've had a Sedna course going on for this last 4 weeks, and going for the next 2 weeks. And And like I say, the courses were kind of researching it at the time. Wow, the energies that people are feeling in terms of this conjunction and the spiritual growth. So Saturn is about how our soul wants to grow in this life, and that starts when we're born and keeps going all the way till we die. It's all valuable. It's all important, but we're always at a particular point in that soul growth. And that's the beauty of it. And so, yes, there's sort of a rich soul growth going on in everyone's lives at the moment, whether they know it or not, sort of thing.
Can you share some examples, Alan?
So, what I would say is, look at where the Gemini cusp. So they're about sort of 2 degrees of Gemini. I think Uranus might be a little over 2 and Saturn a little under 2 at the moment. And so look where that Gemini cusp is, what house that's in your chart. So we talk about Saturn as sort of, soul growth and you've got this huge orbit and so on. But, and yet it's manifesting personally in our lives. These outer planets manifest most clearly in our lives in the houses. We look in the house placement because they're particular areas of our lives. So you want to look at the birth placement of your Sedna to give you a real sort of understanding of what your soul wants to do. What house is it in? That's the area of action that your soul wants to grow in. And then, potentially the opposite house, we have this polarity with the houses in terms of that growth and where it might go and so on. And then the house by transit. So the transiting Sedna is talking about the developing soul growth, what's happening now. So transiting Sedna. So look at the house where you're transiting Sedna, that Gemini cusp is, and that'll give you an idea. So, for example, there was we had a whole lot of 10th house transits, students with and they were all out in the world. They were all making decisions about people in their lives, and including some. And Sedna's about letting go. Sedna's about letting go of the stuff that you don't need for your soul growth. And it may be very important stuff in your life, stuff that's been there all the time, stuff that's, but you don't need it anymore. And so if we just let it go and move on, that's easy actually. It's kind of scary because we don't know what we're moving on to. And we always want to know, and that's not helpful. You can't know. You may get a sense of it from the soul growth that's been happening up to that point, but we could be at new points, and so it's we can't know. So we just have to trust, and that trust is a Hermean thing, and so we have to trust, but we have to let go, and so that's frequently how Sedna manifests. Is the Sabian symbol for Sedna's discovery is a woman emptying an old bag out the window in the sunlight, and our consciousness is the old bag.
Let it go, yeah.
And we sort of empty it all out and air it in the sunlight. Yeah. Lovely. I mean, but frequently we hang on to all of that stuff, and then we're calling crisis into our life actually to force us to let go of stuff.
Yeah, so that's you talk about Sedna representing transcendence. And it's very heart-centered as well, which is beautiful. It's very interesting in my own life. I know 2 people who know nothing about astrology, and they're both having very vivid dreams of being in a storm in a boat and trying to hang on to the boat, but being forced to let go, and they feel it's a trauma, and they're also going through big wobbles in long-term relationships. Wow. And you're absolutely nothing about astrology. So
wow. Yeah.
And I said, well, you've currently got an 11,400 year conjunction because they both got their suns at one of Gemini, 1 degree of
Ah,
Gemini.
shit.
Smack on their suns. So
Yeah.
when I explained you've got this once in an 11,400 year transit happening right now, so it's a really big deal, it had profound meaning for them because they knew
Ah,
nothing of that. So it's quite remarkable how, certainly in those two people I know, it's coming out in their dreams very vividly and accurately.
yeah. Yes. It does. It's amazing how sort of it manifests kind of literally in that way with the dreams, and it can be in the world too with boats and water experiences and so on like that. Obviously, so yes, that's beautiful. That's beautiful to hear. Yes, obviously, if you've got planets at particularly your sun, at that degree, then you're going to be strongly influenced by it. So this is.
People with a transit of Sedna through their 10th house are going to be going through radical career changes, I would think.
Radical career changes, and in that they're sort of making choices about the people that they're interacting with, and whether those people are whether the people and the work is helping their soul growth or not. And frequently with Sedna, we're well out in the 10th house and so on. It's people. It's letting go of people, and in many of the houses, we form attachments, and they're not always good for our soul growth. But they always are good when we form them, and so there's nothing wrong with them. They're just, although they could be manifestly sort of not healthy, but it's what we need at each point, yeah, and that's in at the unconscious level was said, sort of victimization, alienation, these sorts of things, absolutely real. So.
And Sedna will stay in the house really for virtually the rest of our lives, I would think.
Yes, in this current house that she's in at the moment. Yeah, she may have moved from your birth house. She's actually appearing to be moving faster than Eris at the moment. Eris, because of the phase of the orbit and the relationship of the Earth's orbit with where they appear to move at different speeds. And Sedna's swinging around at her closest to the Earth and the Sun in this century, and so she's sort of moving about 1 degree every 2 years at the moment, whereas Eris has only moved sort of 15 degrees in my lifetime. Everyone alive has Eris and Aries.
Yeah. Amazing. And with Uranus, of course, that will stay in a house, depending on the house system you use, round about 7 years.
Yes.
For people who don't know that. So with all of these dwarf planets we're talking about, Alan, I just get such a sense of upliftment. They take us out of the kind of area of personality into this high octave of consciousness. And I know it's something that you feel strongly, that they're operating at a very different level, a soul level, a consciousness level. And this is really the new episode. We've got to look further out to the heavens, but of course they're merely a reflection of going deeper into our own consciousness. It's always an inner and an outer. But they really are, they feel like, even though many of these beautiful experiences are going to be remembered, they feel like new territory for us in this lifetime.
Absolutely.
Feel like a massive rebirth, transformation, metamorphosis for humanity that we are absolutely right in the thick of right now.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing with these planets, with astrology, is it's a language that helps us understand this new consciousness, this new world that we're coming in. It's a complex world now. It's more complex than it was, at any time. And the new planets reflect this new complexity and give it meaning, give us an understanding for it. Yes, the personal stuff, it's still there, it's valuable, and there's, that's what being alive is. but we have to sort of embrace more than that to embrace these new consciousnesses. And that does lift us out of that sort of personal perspective. It's beautiful, and it's a spiritual experience. They're all talking about spirituality. They're all talking about sort of understanding our world in new ways, and that's what spirituality is, I suggest. And so they're just extending it, and the more spiritual we can approach them, the more sort of we get on our spiritual path and sort of understand them as spiritual energies, the easier they become, the sort of more they become tools, they become abilities, they become strengths that we can use in our daily lives, in our personal lives. So they're real, they're usable in the real world, and that's the beauty of it. That's the new world that we're in, where we've and it's not hard to embrace them and understand them and see them in our lives and use them. It's actually straightforward. People do it in like 6 weeks, like I say. And so it's just a matter of taking that step and going, let me embrace this. Let me sort of try this out. The students at the uni. It's a participation exercise. The more you participate, the more you learn. And as people get into that participation, it becomes addictive, and they realise how sort of powerful each of these new consciousness energies, and they just do one course after another, which is so beautiful because they get better and better at doing it because and you realise, and then they do all the courses and they go away, but they've got all of those energies. They can do. Work with their lives in a new way. There's so much growth goes on in the classes. That's it's just so beautiful to see. So beautiful.
Yeah, it's really co-creation, and really respect you for having set up this wonderful organisation, Dwarf Planet University. It's interesting to me as well, Alan, that several of the dwarf planets are really concerned, greater concern about the Earth, Gaia. Mir is very connected shamanically to the Earth and food production and natural cycles, and she's square to Pluto long term, and Quincunx to Sedna. You've got Lilia Kuhonua, and I know Philip Sedgwick, another great researcher, has talked about part of the mythology being the preservation of the earth, the seas and the skies as well. You've got dwarf planet Teheron Hiawako, the creator farmer god of the indigenous people, being very concerned about the state of the earth and the next harvest, having enough seeds for the next harvest. You've got some beautiful mythology with greater concern for art, stewardship and guardianship of the earth. And I think in our lives we've been more concerned with, you've got to get the right job, you've got to have the right title, you've got to have the right car, all of that stuff that is just tinsel and so hollow and irrelevant now. But that's what we live through. That's what the social structures encouraged, and that just seems just valueless now in what we're living in. And that's been a fairly rapid shift, I'd suggest, but the dwarf planets have really helped us with that.
Totally right. Yes, exactly. That's the shift we're in, where we're seeing more meaning in our lives, our experience. We're understanding more meaning in our lives. And this is actually the big benefit of the change that we're in. I know a lot of us are feeling sort of this disruptiveness going on in the world and societies and so on. It's a Sedna change that's going on. Sedna's at her closest point this century. The Laocoonur is also at her closest point.
Within 2 years, aren't they? Sedna's
within 2 years.
2078, yeah.
A real point of change. And so in that sort of that's That's why these new planets are beautiful to have right now, because they're giving us a sort of a way to understand and deal with that change, and grow to be new humans that understand ourselves and our world in a new way.
It's certainly a bigger cosmic map right now.
Bigger cosmic map and a deeper connection, as you say, with all living beings and potentially all reality, actually, not even just living beings.
Really exciting, beautiful. And I know, Alan, coming up this coming weekend, the solstice weekend, you're going to be running a workshop at the London School of Astrology, an excellent teaching organisation run by the brilliant and delightful Frank Clifford, I have to say. So, and it's also on Zoom. It's not just live; it's on Zoom. I understand.
That's right. That's right. I'm going to be in London for the first time in sort of 7-8 years, probably, since before COVID, and teaching live, so take the opportunity if you want to catch me live. But yes, it will be uploaded. We're doing 5 planets, the 4 most well known. So that's Haumea, Maki, Eris, Sedna, and we're also throwing an Ixion to open us to seeker consciousness to these other ones to start with, and then on Sunday we're doing Kwawa, Salacia, and Gongong, and so more in that interconnection stuff. Yes. So yes, and so I encourage people, please. And that Sunday one is an online one. Saturday is live. They'll both. The Saturday one will be uploaded as a recording, so you can catch it online as well.
That would be sensational. Yeah, I will be listening to the replay for sure. But yeah, really encourage you, because this is a rare opportunity to meet with Alan. If you haven't, or certainly get the replay, because these are such exciting times. We've got new vocabulary. We've got new players here, and Alan, I just want to thank you, because you are really one of the very small number of pioneers in this, elevation of astrology. Astrology has to evolve, but one of the big parts of that is the incorporation of the dwarf planets in terms of the expansion of our consciousness and where we're headed. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your service to humanity and to the astral world as well. We're all benefiting.
That's beautiful, and you're playing a beautiful part. Thank you in sort of bringing this out to the world in this way.